everyone. Welcome back to the We Bought a Franchise podcast. I'm Jack Johnson.
And Jill Johnson.
And we've got an incredible podcast for you today. We've got, of course, our great group of franchise consultant, franchise owner experts, Catherine Allen, Morgan Knoller, Brian Gross, David San Juan, and we have a special guest, Thomas Scott. Now, Thomas, I've got to read this because your background here. You're a multi-brand operator, founder of Closetivity, Dryer Vent Squad, Frost Shades, and now Home Run Franchises. You've got 20 years of building, operating, and marketing franchises across food, retail, and home services. Thomas, thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, I've about 25 years in the franchise industry. I've franchised 9 different brands, starting with a company called Show Homes, one of the original home staging brands, and on up through Up Closets, Dryer Vent Superheroes, and the Lighting Squad today. And I've been a multi-unit franchisee in 5 systems and a supplier, and I'm all in on the franchise model. I love this model. I like the industry. I like what it can do to help people change their lives for sure.
I mean, it's like once you stop, you can't stop.
No, I have 6 kids. Can't stop. Yeah, I have 6 kids, and 3 of them are franchise executives. I made my own franchise executives. Like that's what the joke is in our family. We were generational franchisors at this house. So,
isn't that awesome? I wonder how many kids who are kids of entrepreneurs. Both Jill and I are kids of entrepreneurs. How many end up becoming entrepreneurs? I don't know if there's a stat on that, but I'd be very curious. I bet it's a high percentage.
It's like in the 70-80%. It's higher than normal. And you have some generational stuff going on in the market now that makes it even better. But I think I had somebody in yesterday who's buying a Dryer Vent Superheroes for us in Atlanta, and his dad was owned a restoration business. Dad was a restoration franchisee, I think with ServPro or something, and he is getting into service brands. He played SEC football and was a pro football player for a year, and that didn't work out the way he wanted. And he's been doing, medical device sales, very successful at it, has a $500,000 a year income. And he's wanting to get back into business ownership because there's some things about owning a business that you just don't get when you're an employee of somebody else. And no matter how much money you make, you can't replace that kind of joy and feeling you get of having some control over, what you're worth and what your time's worth.
I've always wanted to do my own thing, and my dad owns his own business. He's a builder, and he modeled that from a very young age. He still works 7 days a week, which there's some unhealthy habits maybe there, but that's why I hustle so hard, because I think that's just what was modeled to me. And that's very important for me to model for my children. And I tend to work a little more on the work-life balance that I don't know if I saw growing up. So that's where I'm getting better, but I absolutely think that's true. And I love that about business ownership.
Yeah, they say that, entrepreneurs are the only people that'll work 80 hours a week, so they don't have to work 40, which I think is a funny kind of concept, that's what it works. But, the truth is, if you learn to not be a technician and to really be a CEO of a small business or medium business, like you can work a lot less. It's not nearly like the grind that people make it out to be. If you're grinding that hard, you're doing something wrong. Usually, you need to develop business acumen skills.
Well, I mean, Catherine, you were just in Italy for like 2 weeks, right?
Yeah.
Sweet.
And then she comes back, and we're talking the other day, and she's showing her profit margins. What are you in year 2, Soccer Stars, Catherine?
I have entered year 3 as of July. But yeah, my profit margins are pretty much at 28%. So I'm really proud of that. I didn't really know what that meant. And that's where being part of a franchise is so great, because I have the hustle, I have the heart, but being a director of marketing, like I wasn't a business owner. So that's where coming into a franchise gives you that structure and that framework to help you succeed, and people to lean on and go to for those questions. Numbers is something I've had to get better at. They're so important. You got to look at all the data. I very much drive a data-driven business, but that was not my strength at all. So, but it's going well.
Sometimes you don't know until you get thrown into the fire. Okay, guys, let's kick this off. Here's what I want to talk about first, and we got into this a little bit with Aaron Harper from Rolling Suds last week. Thomas, let's have you kick us off. This is a little bit of a hardball here.
All right.
Home services. What categories do you think are most overhyped in home services right now?
I tell you, I think that some of the green related businesses and kind of sanitation businesses, and I think some of those things are just limited scope and a little more fickle and trendy. I think there's a lot of hype. I think sometimes even restoration gets a little overhyped. Like, to be honest, it's such a crowded space, and it's a hard business to run, and people start there sometimes. But I think there's a lot of opportunity in home services, but I tend to generally stay away if somebody says, it's a green business, it's going to be good for this or that, it's good for the environment. I think there's a little bit of backlash on that in the market today.
Team, I'll open it up to the floor. What do you guys think's overhyped right now? Everyone's being PC. Okay. Hey, listen, if we can't go there, then here's what I want to talk about, Thomas. And I think this is a perfect one for you. So one of your brands, Up Closets, which we have a client who's moving forward with here in the next, I think tomorrow, that's really being awarded at a very good clip. And I would consider Up Closets to be a fairly low investment franchise.
Right.
Can you build a low investment franchise into a big business?
You can, you can for sure. And when we design all of our home run franchise brands, and this is my advice for any new franchisors, you have to kind of build a box first for the business that you're going to target. We build a business that has an investment that's under 150, that has SBA lending, that has good marketing and CRM and technology systems, that has enough competition in the market that there's demand for service and is sustainable and isn't a fickle kind of trendy thing that's going to come and go. And so I think you can, like closets, for instance, the average ticket's around $8,000. If you look at all the closet FTDs for all the closet franchises, mature ones after 3 years are sometimes in the $2, $3, $4 million range. Our upper 25%, according to our FTD, are kind of in $1.5 million, closing on 2. I've got people doing 3. So, we have similar revenue to just about any other closet franchise, just at like 1/3 the investment cost, because we built it to be a modern version of a closet business. And in our industry, most of our competition's stuck in the 1990s. So they just haven't evolved with the technology and the pace and the way people buy things and changing demographics for customer groups. And so, I think you can do that. I wouldn't start a business if I didn't think there was a path to get somebody to the $500,000, $1 million mark in a year and get to, as Catherine was saying, a 20-30% net when you're matured out and ramped through the ramp up. Like, I think if you can't pull that off, why are you franchising it anyway? That's the whole point. That has more to do with the structure and the design of the franchise offering and how it's supported and trained and kind of what the ongoing support is, and less to do with what it cost in the beginning. I think just for us, we just find that there's not enough under 150 serious brands that you can do well in. There aren't enough of them in the market to satisfy consumer demand.
And Thomas, I'm curious too, you're talking about not even just lower cost, but just this kind of area of home services. We're looking at closets, right? And we hear a lot of people love services. One, that lower investment, also being more recession resistant. So, when I've brought up closets with clients looking at space, I hear 2 things all the time. One, hey, that space is really crowded and there's a ton of players in the closet space. And 2, hey, maybe that's actually an area that, if the economy's down, people don't have to do that. Like if your plumbing's out, you're calling a plumber. Electric's out, you're calling an electrician, right? So what would, I guess what's the way you think about?
Yeah, I love that question. And I'm a little bit of a contrarian. I love competitive spaces and I like down markets. That's for me ideal working conditions to start a business in. I go against the grain on that. We ran franchise coffee shops for a while here in Nashville and have helped a few coffee brands. And we would always put our coffee shops across the street from a Starbucks. Like, I wanted to be able to look out the window and see a Starbucks. And we would, but by just being different than Starbucks and offering the things that they weren't good at, we would take 10 or 15% of their revenue, which isn't a lot to Starbucks. It's a huge amount to a startup coffee shop. We'd even put Starbucks mugs in the bathrooms and put the toilet brushes in the mugs just to be snarky with our marketing. But the truth is, if you understand how people buy things, what the customer journey is, and where the competition is strong and where they're not strong, then you design the business around those holes. You can do well. There's always room for a better operator, better pricing, better customer service, better offering, all of those things. Up Closet sells the exact same closet materials, hardware, and lumber that California Closet sells, but we're 35% less expensive on a retail environment. We just run circles around them. We do 65% of our customers are millennials or younger, like they're much younger than the traditional closet buyer, because millennials care a lot about mental health as a demographic group, and having an organized life isn't like a luxury item to them. They think about closets differently. So that's one part of it, is that as long as you're going to market and you differentiate yourself and your marketing is different, your sales process is different, your products are priced differently, and you can prove out that you can succeed, and we clearly are succeeding on that front, then you can win. On the other side, closets specifically is a really, and the reason we wanted to be in the closet space, it's a really interesting home improvement. It's the highest ROI of all the home, of anything you could spend dollars on in your house. Closets will get 110 to 120% return typically on what you spend. So there isn't another investment in a home like a kitchen or a deck or so. You just don't get that kind of ROI on it. And even in the housing bust in the mid 2000s, we didn't see closets diminish down a lot. It was one of the few things that kind of had a steady point. It's obviously slower in a down market than an up market. But what happens is when the market gets rough and you can't sell your house, then creating more space in the closets, which is the main reason somebody sells a house in most places, becomes more of a priority. So people invest in getting a better quality of life in the house they're kind of stuck in. It's the same in today's market where the interest rates are high and people are stuck in these 2% mortgages, and there's no way they're going to leave a 2% mortgage and get a 7% mortgage. So they're just going to spend a lot on investing. When the market's really good, people rip out the closets and put new ones in. There's lots of renovation work, and people like doing the whole house when they move. We see a lot of that in today's market too. It's just it's a different mindset, but we find that I wouldn't go as far as say it's recession resistant, but it's not as impacted as say, a $3,000 to $8,000 closet purchase isn't the same kind of investment as $100,000 kitchen overhaul, or even putting a roof on your house or something, really dramatic. And if you've ever had, I don't know if any of you have custom closets, if you ever put them in your house, you will put one in every house you own the rest of your life. You won't be able to live comfortably without it. So it's a kind of a cool business. We like that it's an in and out service. Like we design it in an hour, and you get them a proposal, comes in 4, 5, 6 weeks, and we install it in one day from zero to, we're finished by 3 PM. It's like, that part of it's pretty cool. Like, it's just a kind of a cool, fun business. People who operate them really enjoy it a lot. Like, it's satisfying business to run.
I have a question for you, Thomas. For since you have multiple home services brands, when it comes to support for the franchisees, we were talking to one, must have been Sunday, I think, a different brand, a different service, and they were talking about 5-to-1 ratio for support to franchisee, and I felt like that was pretty good. Do you feel like between the different home services brands, do you need the same support with something like a dryer vent superheroes versus up closets, or does it vary?
Yeah, it's slightly different on every van, but my kind of philosophy, having been a franchise business coach and obviously having run a bunch of franchises as a franchisee, like I build my brands to treat people the way I like to be treated as an owner. We treat people like adults. So part of it is franchise support is divided for us into 2 different categories. It's product and technical support. How do I install a closet? How do I design a closet? How do I deal with a manufacturing problem? Just the mechanical operational part of this business. Like, how do you train the installers? How do you manage the salespeople? The more important part of coaching kind of support is the coaching end of it, which is onboarding coaching. Like when you sign an agreement with us, we start really intense virtual training and onboarding coaching that culminates in a 1-week in-person thing. By the time you spent 2 months with us, you probably spent 150 hours of work getting ready to open your business. And it's pretty, you know how to design closets, the sales, you've practiced a lot, you're really up to speed at a high level. And then we coach our people for 4 months after they open on a once a week in a peer group. We call it a jumpstart program. And we're looking at every design and every transaction and every consult and every marketing dollar spent. And you're doing this in a group of peers. And so every time somebody makes a mistake, you learn from it. And then we can continue that going. So this kind of two prong of consulting, which is the product knowledge. Like, I don't know how to put this drawer slide in. How do I fix this problem while I'm on site? We have a person that does that. And we have a group of people that business coach that are certified and understand psychology. And they'll be like, well, Morgan, like, how do you want to solve that problem? like you got this problem, like what, like walk me through your options as an owner. Cause we're trying to teach you to be self-sufficient and to really be a leader and a CEO. Like we're not here just to answer the same question 47 times. You don't learn as an owner that way. We're trying to get you to develop critical problem solving skills and maturity in your kind of thinking about the business so you can exceed at it. Generally for the business coach, I like the 1 in 25, 1 per 25 owners in a group. I don't like to have more than that. Sometimes it's less. But it's a 1 in 5, 1 in 8 for staff to people is about that's about where we are in our systems. And, we have admins, we have marketing managers, we have manufacturing support, we've got sales coaches, we have people that do different things, but at the end of the day, you need technical help, or there's somebody who's holding you accountable to grow your business and to learn how to be a good, kind of like what Catherine was saying, like she didn't know the data analytics and didn't understand, any of those KPIs, and they've worked with her. It sounds like they've done a really good job of, you won't unlearn those skills. You could run any business the rest of your life and you would still have that same set of business acumen. And that's our whole view, is that the best reason to buy a franchise today, and especially for younger buyers, it's a path of professional development to learn how to run a business. Like spend 3 years with us, you can run any business the rest of your life. And I think that's an awesome gift to give somebody. Doesn't mean that people will follow through on their responsibilities. That's really frustrating when that happens. But, if they have the right mind and they're engaged and, as Jack said, they try to be the perfect franchisee. I really liked your post you put on that, Jack, that just, it's interesting to see what you can pull off. So the structure helps. It definitely speeds up the process for people.
Well, I love that. And I was going to just really quick, because I was going to do my master's degree and I didn't do it. And so I like that you're saying that they're teaching people to be that person, be the CEO, because I initially was turned off from home services because I didn't want to be the one doing the work, going into all the houses. And I think I didn't understand that very clearly. So I love that that's what you're teaching all of these.
Yeah, I think people have a kind of a simplistic, they just don't know. It's a lack of education. I'm going to be the technician, or I'm going to be some mailbox money extreme, absentee owner. Neither of those is a good outcome. You just being a CEO is you're building the business that you want to run down the road. We're trying to get people to think 3 and 4 years down the road. What is it? What's the ultimate goal you're trying to get to? You're trying to fire yourself. You're trying to build a team that will operate without you. So I can do what Catherine does and go to Italy for 2 weeks. That sounds super awesome. But her business didn't go underwater when she was there. She probably has good systems and support and structure and technology to help her run those. And that's
a great manager.
A great manager. Yeah. And so that's, for a franchise owner, I think, there aren't a lot of really good studies, unfortunately, that track this, but I would think that you have a significant advantage in the market just because you're starting out with all the stuff. It's kind of like that cake box analogy. You could bake a cake from scratch and you could figure out all the ingredients and you could make an amazing cake, and you probably make a lot of errors. Or you could buy a box cake mix and put water in it, and it would still be your cake's going to be there a lot faster with a lot less waste. And not that I love box cakes, but the just add water idea is kind of a cool idea. Like you spend all of your time operating the business and helping customers, and very little trying to reinvent things or develop systems. Like it's got to help. That's what the investment's for.
I personally love cheap cake. Give me that. Give
Cheap
me that
cake.
good grocery store cheap frosting. Give it to me all day long over any fancy.
There you go.
Great cakes, man. Say every
Jack, you don't
birthday.
look like you eat a lot of cake. I, on the other hand, look like I eat all the cakes in the room. So.
Don't be fooled. I eat a lot of cake. But hey, okay, here a couple of quick things. This is something I've been thinking a lot about. like most normal people don't get to get equity in a company, right? You always hear about these smart people that got some equity in Silicon Valley, and but mainly that's not going to be me, and it's not going to be you. And the thing is that anyone that follows, any of us on social media, we really try and tell it how it is, and that the first 12, 18 months, look, you're going to pay your dues. And people will say to me, well, gosh, why would I do that? Why would I take a step back from my 150K a year job and go do that? Because you can't flip that 150K job for, $1 million. You can build such equity with a franchise, and it's not as hard as you think. It's like right now we've got a client who's moving forward with a recurring revenue home services franchise, and they are in a great market for it. They're looking at a pool services franchise, and they're in Arizona. And the debate they're currently having is between 2 and 3 territories. And so they came to me as the franchise consultant and said, look, what do you think? One of them wants to do 2, one of them wants to do 3. And so basically I said, look, let's talk about what does it do to your working capital? Because if it's going to kill your working capital, don't do it. But if we're trying to build a $1 million exit, then we've got this tool called our exit path calculator, where basically you can take a service franchise, a retail franchise, home care franchise, what have you, and you can aim towards, hey, I want to get to $1 million EBITDA. How many units should I have? And so the calculator said he needed 4. So I said, to me, it's an easy question now. You've got the capital. You can start with 3, and I'll bet you in 18 months, if you guys are really doing well with this, we can find another franchisee who's close by, and you can buy their location and get to 4. So I think building towards an exit, and Catherine, this goes back to the point that you made, being on top of your numbers from day one, building your business. Just to me, every day, I want to make sure if anyone were to ever call me and say, we've got a fund, we want to buy the franchise insiders, that I could send them my P&L and everything is dialed. You could ask me in the middle of the night and I can send you a P&L and it's all up to date. So build your business, even though you may never want to sell, build your business to sell from day one.
That's great advice. Yeah, I like that. We don't, I don't love selling people huge numbers of units because you don't know, and it's a quirky, counterintuitive thing, but some of the people with the most capital fail at the highest rates in my franchising experience. Because they don't want to do the work. Like they think, oh, I just got all the capital. That's a substitute for putting the hard work in. And sometimes you got to kind of find a mix. So it gets, we like to get people 2 or 3 units and then see how they can perform and get them to some level and then let them expand. But yeah, I think it's true. That's a really cool calculator. I'd love to see that sometime.
Sure. Happy to send it to you.
Yeah.
Yeah. For anyone, by the way, who's interested in that calculator, feel free to text 305-710-0050.
Yeah, I think people sometimes get so caught up in the first 12 to 18 months, which is the hardest part. Like that is the hardest part of launching a franchise, is that first year and a half, where you're making investments in the business and you haven't really gotten to where it's smooth, and you haven't gotten to where you're, even if it's profitable, you haven't maximized your profit. It's not until the second, third year typically that it gets really nice and calm waters and you can really scale. And I don't think people really think about valuations, about like, well, what, and the appetite for resale service businesses in the US is really insane right now. Like there's just so much of a market for resale stuff. Like when we have resales, they sell quickly. It's not hard to find buyers even in today's market.
Yeah, everybody's excited about everybody spends, I don't want to say everybody, but so many people spending so much time. Brian, you spent a lot of time on this. And for anyone who is listening to the podcast, who is looking for those resales, those M&A acquisitions, Brian's probably our guy who's on it the most. Brian, wouldn't you say? I mean, that's where we're seeing so many people who just scour biz, buy, sell every single day looking for that perfect business.
They are. It's always interesting. So you're looking for that perfect business, which one doesn't exist. But when you talk about the screening criteria, when you ask people, hey, what are you looking for, and what meets that list, it's all the same criteria. Everyone's looking for the same operating history, the same length that's been open. They're looking for the same SDE. They're trying to buy at the same multiple. So it's just a really crowded market. But Thomas, you just said something that's really interesting. And we brought this up before. A lot of times the best businesses, they don't hit biz buy sell, right? They're not being listed online. They're going to other people in the system, right? So, one of the things I always find interesting, I always ask when I meet someone new, how long have you been looking for a business? And I'd say 18 to 36 months is probably the average answer. So when you start thinking about that amount of time out, kicking tires and looking at listings and trying to get more information, think about these home service brands, what you could build in 2 years time frame, and then have the inside edge, to get listings of your neighbors, other businesses that aren't even hitting the market. So the opportunity is just being missed by really looking for something that's not hitting biz buy sell.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I had the honor of being on the advisory council for Biz by Sell for several years. And last year, the amount of traffic they have on that site was up 300 or 400%, like a really significant increase. And it's all people looking for this, unicorn boomer selling a service business. To your point, like those don't really exist in any kind of mass quantity. If there's anything good, I mean, I've used Biz by Sell to sell my personal businesses, and I've sold every one I put on there in 48 hours. Like it's just like if it's really a legit business, like Jack says, and you have a P&L and it's the real deal, it'll sell super, super fast. And so, I think one of the, we're probably 60% of our placements are people that were in that 18 to 24. Like they were coming up, they found us on Business by Sell or thought about us because they saw a similar business or something and kind of did their research. But I think it's fascinating to see that people are going for that. And I think a good strategy today is like maybe look to buy out underperforming franchise operators, because there are some. Like I'd love for people to take a stab at running a business, but it doesn't mean that it's for everybody. Not everybody has really takes to run a business. Like it
But
takes a little bit of a learning curve.
that's the advantage of franchise over mom and pop, is you have built-in acquisition and exit partners from day one. If you go buy a mom and pop and mom and pop go retire, as everyone likes to paint the picture, right? Mom and pop's got the $1 million business and they're going to sell it to you for zero down seller financing. When mom and pop leave and they retire, they don't want to take your phone call. So that's a big thing to think about, is that built-in support. And when you buy a franchise, I mean, David, look at Pink's. I mean, there's people who are adding up Pink's locations like yourselves, and there's people who are divesting Pink's locations, because that's just how a franchise system goes. I would be willing to bet that and franchise owners tend to sell to franchise owners, but on any given day, 5 to 10% of every single franchise system is for sale. And you can get great deals just by asking your franchisor, hey, who is within driving distance of me that I could acquire? And in many cases, seller financing, if you really position it right to a seller, hey, look, we could buy you for a couple $100,000 today, or we could pay you out over the next 24 months with a promissory note. And your tax burden is going to be so much less. And now you're getting that real mailbox money that you were looking for. I mean, that's the beauty of franchising.
Yeah, for sure. It's even with good franchise systems like us, we'll have 3 or 4 or 5 at any time. That if you came to me and said, "Hey, do you have any resales?" I said, "I got 3 or 4 that are good businesses that, for whatever reason, the owner wants to do something else in their life, or they're going through a divorce. I've got one has cancer. Life happens to people, and it puts them in situations where they need to make a soft exit. But my advice is always, like, if you're a franchisee, try to sell it for twice. If you got profitable, try to get it to twice what you invested in it, and owner finance half. Like get them 50% down and carry a note for the remainder. You can't really lose. It's really hard to do that with a startup business, or impossible in most cases, but super common in franchise systems. And those are some of the people that you meet, really smart people in franchising, and the multi-unit guys that mop up all the unit, like in food concepts, they'll buy all the underperforming stores and turn them into mega performing, profitable. It's so much cheaper to do that than to build one yourself. It's a smart move.
Thomas, sorry. You said something that I actually did a LinkedIn post on the other day, which is franchising isn't for everyone. And I'd love to hear, you've been doing this a long time across many, many brands. When you think of your top performers, right, that you've worked with over the years, what traits do they have and qualities, just for the audience?
Yeah, that's such an important question too. And every low performer in a system wants to know what the top performers are doing. And I would tell you that the top performers in most systems, I mean, it sounds like routine, but they follow the system. Like my top performing up closets people will say, look, I want to hit, 200,000 a month or 100,000 a month, whatever the number is that they're trying to hit. What do I need to do to get there? And it's a math equation for us. You need this many sales consultants. You need this many consultation appointments, marketing budget of X, do this, and this. And the people that just do it generally hit. That's the whole point of having proven kind of track record is they hit it. The people that really struggle on the other end will come in and want to reinvent the wheel. Like they'll want to redesign everything. It's much more about how you feel versus what actually works. Like, I don't like that ad. I don't like that vendor. I don't like that account manager. I don't like this CRM. It doesn't work the way my other CRM worked. And, but like everybody in the top performer list uses these systems and they use them without any trouble. Like you got to ask yourself, like, why is it really that? Do you want to lose 200,000 over your feeling, or do you want to just make 200,000 and then hire someone to deal with that? That's a really hard, you get people when, if you're a franchisor, you'll have a lot of people that become millionaires. You'll have a lot of people that go out of business. And the difference is the people that go out of business maybe will listen to 10 or 15% of what you would try to get them to their help that you try to give them, the advice, and they'll reinvent stuff. And the top performers generally will listen to about 40%. Like nobody listens to more than 50% of what a franchisor says. It's just human nature. To be an entrepreneur means you're wired to some level of innovation, and that's normal. But you have to kind of tamp it down in a franchise system a little bit to get to the result. Like otherwise you're going to end up spinning your wheels.
Yeah, I think you nailed it there, Thomas. I think it was a blessing for myself, not having any business background and coming from blue collar, being a police officer. I just came into the system with Pinks and just followed the playbook. And like we say at Pinks, just run the damn ball. And that's what I've been doing. And right now I'm a top 5 franchisee within the system, but it's just not, just sticking to the plan, just stick to what they tell you to do and not trying to overcomplicate it. And I see it all the time now within the system. The people that are struggling are those that think they know better. They had a business before and they want to use their way, and it's not working quite as well.
And some of my best performers, it's interesting. My biggest group of top performers in all 3 of the brands we have are Gen Z owners, people that are under 25. Oddly enough, they make up about 30% of my population. And I go out of my way to try and recruit those people. They're a little harder to recruit and they have to overcome some obstacles. But they make up, that small group makes up 60% of my top performer group. And I think they're raised on tales of entrepreneurship. Like they are very self-learning. They're very coachable. They don't have bad habits. I tell them, like, look, you can take a lot of risk when you're 22 or 24 or 25. Like you're not even going to remember what you were doing in your 20s when you're my age. Just it's going to go right over your head. So you might as well go for it. And they're not afraid to fail. In fact, not that they fail, but the idea that you fail means you're doing stuff right, that you're learning and get back up. And so I'd take every one of those. Franchising needs a lot more of those people. And a lot of our business coaches are younger like that too. We develop our own talent sometimes, and we try to get people who are more, because I think if you're a recruiter like you guys are, that's where the bulk of the market is today. Like there's, millions of those people, and they don't get into franchising at near the levels that I think they probably could or should. Gets back to Jack's point of having an affordable, really entry-level franchise that has affordable cost. But I think they just don't reinvent the wheel. They just do like, okay, tell me what to do, A, B, C, D. It's like watching a YouTube video and they go ahead and do it. Yep. And the 50-year-old guy was doing sales at Salesforce or for medical companies or is running their own service business. They have a way, like, well, I had it organized. They have to unlearn what their success strategy was in the last business because it doesn't apply here. And it's hard. There's a lot more coaching on that for sure, but they're worth working with. You can sometimes get those people straightened out too.
I think that point that you made, and I've said that to every younger candidate that I've ever worked with who's in that. And we actually saw it play out with a client of ours who he invested in a roofing franchise. He was 29 years old. He just came into an inheritance. In under 2 years, he flipped it and sold it for $6 million.
That's awesome.
I won't name the concept because we don't want to break any FTC rules, but you imagine he bought 2 units. His all-in investment was $300,000. He had multiple offers and he flipped it and sold it for $6 million at, 31 years old. And I would agree with you that it's much better to do it then 25, 30, 35 than the 60-year-old that wakes up one day and says, oh, shoot, I don't have anything for retirement. And I probably have at max 15 good working years, assuming all goes well, but probably 10. And now I got to go build up. And what do you think an average person needs to retire these days? At least $2 million. So now they come to us and we're in the fourth quarter. And we really, so then it's like, okay, well, we can do that, but you're going to have to focus on low investment, high return, like senior care, things like that, home services. Whereas if you could start younger, if you could start at 25 with an up closets, and you get good at it and you start stacking units, and then you're 35 years old and you've got 10 units, I mean, then you could be living the lifestyle that Catherine is, like going off to Italy for a couple of weeks.
Right. Yeah.
Well, I had a client the other day, and one of the concepts he really liked, and he's like, if this had been me 10 years ago, I would have done it. But now that I'm a little older, I just am not, I don't have that hustle, of that level for that specific concept. So I love that. I need to start marketing.
Yeah, I think when
millennials, less than millennials. Gen Z? Is that Gen Z?
Yeah,
Gen
that's Gen
Z.
Z. Yeah, I think like the younger folks will get in and do a lot of the work themselves. Like they'll actually do the hustle and they're not afraid to, and they'll scale. The strategy for us, at least, I don't know how it is with the other clients you guys work with, but when you have somebody who's like 45, 50, 55, and they're coming out of a career where AI wiped out the management class they were in and they just have to do something different, it's to try to be really practical and that you have to build a team. Like your job isn't to do the work. Your job is to become an executive, develop leadership skills, learn how to delegate, have systems, follow the system, run a business that will run without you in as short a period of time as you possibly can, that 1 to 2 year period. And, our coaching for that group is different than the coaching we do with younger people. You have to really think about, boomer, Gen X, millennial, Gen Z, like they're just very different. They learn differently. They're coached differently. They have a whole different wiring and how they think about problem solving. I mean, it affects the way you recruit people, the sales process. And so you can get those people up to very high successful rates. They just you have to set the proper expectations that, you're going to, in the closet business, you're going to have 3 salespeople. Each salesperson needs 26 consults a month, and it should spend between $200 and $300 of marketing per consult. So, that's what your P&L is going to look like. You're going to have that kind of marketing expense and staff overhead for you to hit the number you want to hit. Otherwise, you don't have the energy to do what those people can do. You just, let's be real. Like I'm 55. I don't want to work that hard. I work harder, but like, that's not a success strategy for people. And you can't just have a hope that it's going to be, you got to have a plan that works and broken down for where you are in your development or generational cycle.
Back to closets real quick. Yeah. Jill upgraded her closet and it was not cheap. But as I thought about it, I almost, thought of it as a defensive strategy in that if the shit ever hit the fan, and then we needed to sell our house and we wanted to make it different than the other ones in our neighborhood, if we could point to, hey, we've got the biggest closet in the neighborhood, that gives us something to kind of hang our hat on. And so to me, and I don't know that statement's true. I'm just, exaggerating, but, to me, I'm like, it's exactly what you said. When we go into houses, we want the kitchen, right? We want you want the outside to have good, furniture out there. And you need to have that closet because, I don't know, Catherine Morgan, this was when Jill and I first got serious and we would start looking at houses. I didn't give a, anything about the closets, right? I'm like, okay, there's a view, there's this. And Jill would like shoot these houses down, say, there's no way in heck that closet's too small. Now I understand it. And I actually think you could make an argument that a closet franchise like Up Closets could be pretty darn recession resistant if marketed the right way. Because again, I think as I look at where I'm going to spend my money, investing in something like that's a really good move to add value to your long-term value to your house.
Oh yeah. And my wife runs the Nashville kind of Franklin Up Closet. She's a franchisee herself. So we're we run company stores of our operations in several markets. So I'm just a big believer in that. But we were out on a weekend and she has some tools in her. She's got like a little BMW M4. Doesn't look like a trades car, but it's what she does her consults in. She had some tools and some rods in the back. She got a call from a customer who said, "Hey, I just bought this house. I think it's one of your closets," because there was a label somewhere on a drawer that he figured out it was something that she had installed 2 or 3 years prior. "And I want to move a rod around. Like, can you help me with that?" She goes, "Well, I'm not coming in that part of town. I'll just drop by." And so we went by, and it was a $75 repair. And he'd already had a pantry and a closet. It didn't really need much more, but I think that's an important customer service thing. But he said, "I just want to tell you, this is like an over 55 kind of neighborhood, one of those Dale Webb kind of things. And there were 7 houses for sale on this street. This one wasn't the best deal, but I bought it because the pantry and the closet were amazing." And my wife, that's the only one she would let us put an offer in on. And we paid more. I mean, I probably paid more than the closets cost, which he did, and so I see that story over and over and over again. Your wife probably had an amazing closet in another house. Like, she's probably used to that, and you don't want to lower your lifestyle down. And it's a need, not a luxury thing. Like, it's something you have to have versus something you just want to have. And it's a pretty cool psychology thing. If you understand how that all works, it makes marketing and sales pretty easy to kind of get to clients. And it's the reason, the closet industry was up 24% last year. Like, it's gone through some like crazy levels of growth, driven mostly by millennials and Gen Zs who are buying closets. Like, they may not buy a $50,000 closet, but they get in and they have wire shelves, and we call it the closet of shame. Friends don't let friends have closets of shame. Nobody likes wire shelves. They're awful. They're hard to live with. They waste space. And they might spend $2,000 or $3,000 on a basic custom closet, but that's an entry point into the rest of their lives. They'll be a closet customer in every house that they own.
I got to redo our closets. My gosh, you're selling.
Yeah,
Is that
we're
closets in California?
yeah, and we're not
buy
in
your
California. We're
shelves. I don't
approved in
buy your
California. I
shelves.
wish we had some California folks. Like, that would be a great market for us for sure.
But it's an interesting market. My first franchise was actually in home services, and we did kitchen, bathroom, organization, accessibility. And so you mentioned Del Webb, 55 plus communities is in the state of Florida. So a lot of these big new construction neighborhoods would be in as people are moving in, or even the week or two before they move in, and would always be in with closet companies. But it'd be new construction homes with the white wire racks and closets and pantries. And that was first order before people had moved in. A new construction home was replacing and putting in a custom closet, right? Because they weren't part of even pretty custom homes, high-end homes still had very basic closets.
Oh yeah, I mean, in a $1 million house, sometimes we'll have wire shelves. $1 million house isn't $1 million house anymore. It's really a $350,000 house by what your standards are. But it just, a lot of younger buyers, millennials in particular, will stretch to buy the maximum amount of house they can buy, and that's where they skimp. Is it'll have builder grade closets. And so yeah, the market for closets is great. I think it's just a testament. When you see 15 or 20 brands in a competitive space, that just means there's that much customer demand for what it does. I think that's always a good thing to be. And as long as your franchisor is committed to franchisee success and is innovative and can articulate, here's how we're different, here's where we win. This is who our sweet spot customer is, and this is why we delight them and how we price our things. You have to have a clear roadmap. If they can't do that, don't buy it. Like, if you're going to buy window cleaning, Pinks is a really slick brand. I love all the branding. I'm envious of some of their branding for our DriveNet brand, but they're, and we know those guys really well, but like there's a bunch of window cleaners. Like, there's a Pinks here in Franklin that, that Brentwood Franklin, that he's super, I think Kenny is his name, super nice guy, but they're, I like that one better than all the other ones. And maybe it's branding, maybe it's customer service, maybe it's pricing. There's, just because there's a lot of people in a space, that generally means it's a good business to be in.
We really think we very much, the franchise insiders, we believe validation is the key to all of this. And that's why we created a franchisee interview that anyone can get if they go to our website, thefranchiseinsiders.com. You can get, not only you can get questions to ask franchisees, which we recommend talk to 5 to 10. And we actually have a client who's moving forward with enough closets tomorrow. And I know she talked to, I think right around there, about 10 different franchisees.
At least 10. Yeah, she's analytical. Like, yeah, she's great.
But we really, and so we make sure everyone does that. We also have a 27 red flags you should know about. So again, go to the franchiseinsiders.com. All those resources are free, including the valuation calculator. Our aim, Thomas, is to provide everyone with as much information as possible, but thinking about it as franchise owners. And that's why our whole mission here is franchise owners helping future franchise owners, is we want to help people who are thinking about business ownership think about it the way that an owner should think about it. So with that said, let's do a quick kind of like closing thoughts kind of going. David, I know you've got a hard stop, so let's start with you. Let's go David, Brian, Morgan, Thomas, Catherine. David, fire us off your closing thoughts on this podcast.
Amazing podcast. And again, I know I'm the quiet one here in the bottom right, but it's just hard to get stuff in with all these wonderful people on the team and the speaker. But again, coming from blue collar police officer to now owning my business and being part of the consultant franchise industry consulting, if you want to reach out to me and just hear my story and just talk all things franchising, go ahead and reach out. My telephone number is 305-496-4883, 305-496-4883. But again, thanks for being here, Thomas. Really appreciate all the insight.
Cool. Thomas, it's always fun talking to people like yourself who you've owned multiple franchises, you're a franchisor, so you've seen all sides of this business. And one of the things that you mentioned a couple of times today was along the lines of, hey, I'll take a business with a lot of competition, right? There's always room to do things better, to have stronger marketing, and really scale a business when there's consumer demand. And I think we're seeing that right now with your service businesses. So, I think that's just a key takeaway that anyone listening should always keep in mind is don't shy away from competition. Competition just proves that there's enough space out there for another player.
Yeah, thank you, Thomas. My big takeaway was just being your own CEO with home services. I think I shied away too quickly. So I hope people listening take it seriously and go dive into what's out there and understand that it's a low buy-in and there's huge success. So I hope it helps someone.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, I think, thank you guys for having me. This is an awesome group. We're excited to have a placement with you guys. And I really appreciate the work you guys are doing to educate people. I think in all of your materials, you're thoughtful. Like, I think that this idea that you can run an inexpensive franchise that can get to really large kind of multiples, like it's, you don't have to have millions of dollars to build a business that's worth potentially millions of dollars. And I think the market is full of people that you could help, and I'm excited to kind of be part of that growth for sure. I think, home services are where the action's at today. It's the smart money in a franchise purchase.
Catherine?
Yep. Two thoughts. One, you've sold me, Thomas. I need to get custom closets. It's a done deal. I'm talking to my husband after this. Two, I love the Gen Z, hearing you guys have kind of figured that out, and that you have a cohort in your company that's driving 60% of the revenue, right? That's what you said.
Yeah, and they're just like they're right out of business school or right out of college, and their parents help them with an SBA loan, and that's really all it takes. Like, that's that easy of a deal to put together.
Yeah,
maybe they only buy 1 or 2 units, but
you're the first one I've heard say that. So I think that that's really, for anyone listening in that age group, Up Closets would be a great.
Or any got a good service brand, any of them, mine or anybody else's. But just, behind every 22-year-old Gen Z is a 55-year-old Gen X who wants their kid to be entrepreneurial and not follow the path that they followed. So you'll find that generationally, those two generations are pretty entrepreneurial and very pro-risk oriented. They'll take chances on things. So I think if you're recruiting people, like, that's a missed opportunity for a lot of franchise consultants. They just assume that somebody young isn't going to have the drive or the capital. And that's a mistake. Like, they're some of our best owners. They validate amazing, like a great to place. We'll take everyone you want to send our way.
I'm going to go find them.
You're going to see, I think now with the news that OpenAI, ChatGPT soon is going to have, you know, an advertising platform.
Oh, I'm so excited about that.
Isn't that great? I think we are going to be able to find the right kind of people. I think this type of message, first of all, you know, it's great. You know, for us, we're going to be putting a lot of more of this video content onto TikTok, where we hope we can find more of those avatars that you discussed. But yeah, I mean, I think the most important thing is this for everyone, which is starts with one. And have patience, right? You don't have to be a rock star entrepreneur from day one. You got to get to month 18. Get to month 18 and see where you are. And that really will tell the story. And then from there, if you're working with a franchise consultant, like anyone on our team here, we build that into our process, that at month 18, we're going to check in and we're going to discuss, are we now going into acquisition mode? Or are we going into selling mode? What are we doing? Or are we staying put? But it really, that is the advantage of franchise versus going out there and doing the M&A stuff, is that you've got this built-in network, built-in franchisees, acquisition, exit, it's all built in. You just have to go take the systems and execute. So this has been great, Thomas. We appreciate you being on the podcast, and thank you for joining us today. For all of you listening, if you want help with your franchise search, visit us at thefranchiseinsiders.com. I recommend you go to our team page, where you can learn about Catherine, Morgan, Brian, David, and determine, you know, who it makes sense for you to work with. We'd love to help you in any way that we can, and we thank you for listening to our podcast. We'll see you next time.
We bought a franchise.